Hello everyone. I am making a pre-recording just in case I have problems with the class later on today like I did last time. So the class is about the game Laugh and Lie Down. It is a card game that um, we're not sure, can't guarantee it was played in the Middle Ages or not. There are references to a game by that name coming from the 16th century. But nobody wrote down the rules to most card games in SEA period. So we have a lot of names of games, but nobody bothered to write down the rules until the mid 17th century. So we have a couple of sources there that say this is how we play the game now. We sort of have to take it on faith that the rules were substantially the same 100 years earlier. This game is primarily known through a source called Francis Willoughby's Volume of Plays or Book of Games. It was a half-finished document that it wasn't published during his lifetime. Francis Willoughby was a polymath, wrote several things, and died very young at the age of 36. This is something that he was working on, and his descendants had his notes essentially published and in the early 21st century. So here is a picture of the book itself, the physical volume, and mostly it is transcriptions of the original stuff and some examples of the original pages. But Francis Willoughby's Book of Games, edited by David Cram, Jeffrey Forgang, and Dorothy Johnson. So that's pretty much, I guess, the history of this as far as we know it. The actual game itself is a fishing game. It is described in the book as being for 5 players. He also says you can play with different numbers. So we are sort of counting on that. But I have laid out a sample game for 5 players. The basic rules are you deal out 8 cards to each player. You take the remaining 12 cards. You lay them out in the middle here, as we've done. And then on your turn, you take a card from your hand and match it with a card on the table. Now, normally, these cards would be in your hand. Nobody else would see them, but just for demonstration purposes, I'm playing with everything face up as much as anything else, just because I don't want to be constantly picking things up, putting them down, flipping them over, etc. As I said, you match a card from your hand with a card in the middle, in the pool in the middle. If you cannot make a match, then you're out of that hand. You take the remaining cards in your hand and you add them into this pile in the middle, and the other players continue taking cards from the now expanded pool. When there's only one player left, the hand is over. They do not get to make any additional matches once the second to last player drops out. They do get credit for having taken the last trick, but any remaining cards in the pool and the remaining cards in that last player's hand go to the dealer, and the dealer gets credit for those in their score pile. You basically are scoring the number of pairs that you collect. At the beginning of the game, everybody should ante in 2 stakes, 2 times whatever the base value is, except for the dealer who antes in 3 because they have an advantage. At the end, you count up how many pairs you took. If you took 4 pairs, then you have essentially broken even. That would be 8 cards. You were dealt 8 cards. You have 8 cards. You don't gain or lose anything. If you took less than 4 pairs, you have to pay 1 for every additional card you did not take. And if you, well, I should say you lose 1 for all that. And if you took more than, 4 pairs, then you take additional coins out of the pot. Now, you've already essentially anteed in 2, so really you're counting if you took more than 4 cards or 2 pair, because you've already paid in advance on the assumption that you might not get up to that 4 pair. But the idea is that if you take 4 pair, you break even. You take your 2 back out of the pot for what you had earlier. Is that right? 6, 11. No, that is not right. My apologies. You have to get the 4 pair to break even. The person who had last trick gains an additional 6 stakes out of the pot. So being the last person surviving is really the big jackpot here. So they get an extra 5 stakes. There are 6 pair in the middle. That's 6 stakes. 6 plus 5 is 11. If everybody is entered in 2, except for the dealer who entered in 3, 2, 4, 6, 8, dealer would be 11. So we're even. So yeah, 4 pairs is the magic number to break even. Let's see. When you lay out the cards, if there is a 4 of a kind laid out, the dealer picks those up immediately. Those go to in the score pile. If you have a 3 of a kind in your hand, or as you see here, if there is 3 on the table, we have these 3 6s. Then if you play the 6, you get to pick up all of them. If you have 3 of a kind in your hand, you can play the 3 to match the 1 that is out here on the table. If you have a pair in your hand and that there's a pair on the table, then you could match 2 and 2 on 1 turn. Now you probably want to do that over 2 turns because staying into the end is the big advantage here. If you cannot play a card from your hand, a pair from your hand directly, that is against the rules. However, if you can basically prove that there's no way that anyone could ever possibly play that pair, then you can take them straight from your hand into your score pile. It does not count as your turn, but it does give you points at the end of the game. An example of that would be, if, well, I don't know, I guess there's not a really good example here. If you have a pair in your hand and there's 1 on the board and somebody takes that 1 off the board, okay, somebody plays the jack, I've got a pair of jacks in my hand, we'll say. And then, well, gee, Bob just played jacks, so I am just going to take these 2 and put them in my score pile now, because otherwise they're just dead cards. Let me glance over at my notes here. That's pretty much it for rules. Willoughby recommends that this be played fast-paced. He wants there to be mistakes and little oversights. And says that if there is an oversight, if somebody plays the 6 and only grabs 1 and leaves the other 2 behind, then whoever catches it first says, aha, then they get to collect the cards that were not taken. If you say, I'm out, and you lay down your cards and you say, oh no, you could have matched those 2, you can immediately grab those and take them. If you're the first one to spot that and call it out. So that's pretty much it for the gameplay. I'm going to start walking through a basic hand here. I've sorted the hands in sort of the order which I would play these cards. I will use, I guess, this one here as an example. You have 2 9s. So I want to play those first, because if there was 1 9 out there, somebody else might take it, and then I have weight lost 1 turn and possibly 2 turns if somebody lays down a 9 later on. So if you have a pair, you want to play one of them quickly. If there's a pair out here on the board, you can take your time playing it, because somebody may take one of them, but you can take the other one. That's really the gist of the strategy, is try to conserve your possibility to make future plays. So we start over here on this pair. 9 is probably the 9 matches 1 to 1. That goes in their score pile. This player can't play the 9s. We'll play the king instead. And that goes into their score pile. Over here, we have the jack, another singleton. And we'll play that to the score pile. Now, don't worry about the 8s or the queens, because they're paired. I can play those pretty much any time. Over here, can't play the jack. Has to play the queen. We go in there. Over here, the king has been taken. Actually, that's true. When the king was taken, should have just instantly put these into the score pile. Let me see, were there other ones like that? I don't think so. Queens, jacks, 9s, no. Actually, yes, there was 9s. This guy should have taken the 9s immediately into the score pile. These are the oversights. Normally, you would, I guess house rules, whether you can say, oops, I forgot this, or whether you wait until somebody lays their cards out and say you forgot it. But since I'm trying to juggle 5 hands in my head, I'm just going to say, yeah, he gets away with it. 4s. We'll match the 4s. Goes in the score pile. 8. We'll match the 8. Take that into a score pile. He's got the other 8, so we'll take that. This player over here has jacks are gone. Ace, 2, 5, 7, 10. None of those showed up. They're out. They've taken a grand total of 1 trick, and they are out of plays as this game went. So they get to lay their cards out for everybody else to play with on now. And this layout was kind of brutal with a couple pairs and this 3 of a kind. So it was rather, as I would say, brutal because of the number of there. For 12 cards, there were only, I think, 7 values, which is unusual. So now we take a look at this. 4s. We know the 4s are safe, so we can postpone that till later. The 5s are perfectly safe. The 10 is probably the best play now because you want to force somebody else to lay out a 10 later. Over here, ace, 2s, and 3s. We'll take the 2. Over here, we've got the queen. We've got the 7s. Break up my pair and cash those in. This guy's out. 6, ace, 3, 7. The 6s are still safe, so we'll play the ace. And collect those. Back over to here. Ace is gone. 5s are safe. We'll take the 4. Keep everybody guessing. Over here. Ace, 2, 3. This player is out. They've had a better game of it because they took more tricks, but they are out. Over here. Queen, deuce, 3. 7, 10. We'll take the deuce. Play the 3. Ace. It's got to be the queen. Six, and take all of them for 2 pair. Match 1 and 3 for 2. Match 1 and 3 for 2 pairs. This player. Let's see. There's 2 people left. So I gotta say, we'll play politely and just take the 1 pair. This player is stuck. They have to lay down. This player will take 1 of these. This player will take 1. This is unusual that all the cards are being played out. Normally there's a few left in the center that cannot be matched because one player has them all in their hand. Players lay down at different times. But this is sort of unusual that everything matched out. So, going around the table here, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So 4 tricks over, plus the last trick. This person would get 9 coins out of the pot, or 9 stakes. They've done ridiculously well. Second player, 2, 4, 6, 8. They break even. Third player, let's count pairs. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pairs. They get 1 out of the pot. This poor player has to pay 3 more into the pot for what they didn't take. And 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 pair. This pair should take 4 more out of the pot. If I did that all right, it should add up to an even sum. If not, I apologize for missing the math here. But that's it. Hopefully this is helpful, and I will see you in the group chat later.